Okay, picture this. You're out with your friends, having a great time, and somebody takes a video. The next day, that video pops up in the group chat. So you hit play. You look fine, but then you hear it, your voice. Instantly, your shoulders tense up. You physically wince. You're rushing to turn the volume down before anyone else can hear it. It is this deeply visceral reaction, right? And we almost all feel it. But why? Well, welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unravel the mystery of exactly why we absolutely hate the sound of our own voices. You hear that playback, and your brain immediately goes, wait, do I really sound like that? It is such a universal question. Actually, even surgeons report this. When they record their patients' voices for therapy sessions, some of those patients will just outright refuse to listen to the playback. They get visibly uncomfortable. So listen, you are definitely not alone here. Almost every human being on Earth experiences this really jarring mismatch.
And this discomfort is so incredibly common, it actually has an official scientific name. It's called voice confrontation. Basically, this means your mind and your body naturally reject the sound of your own recorded voice. So, right off the bat, I want to say your experience is completely valid. This isn't just about having low self esteem or being self conscious. Your brain is having a documented physical reaction to what it's hearing. Let's dig into that.
To understand why this happens, we kind of have to look at the simple physics of sound. When you speak out loud, the rest of the world hears you through what's called airborne sound. Sound waves travel out of your mouth, through the air, and straight into their ears. But you hear yourself totally differently. You hear that air, sure, but you also hear bone sound. Because as your vocal cords vibrate, those vibrations are traveling directly through your skull. And solid bone just happens to be incredibly good at conducting low, deep sounds.
So, because of those bone vibrations, your head is basically acting like a built in subwoofer. You literally live inside this private acoustic theater. In your own head, your voice feels rich, It's deep, it's full of bass. But a microphone? Well, a microphone doesn't have a skull, it only picks up the air. So, when a recording strips all those comforting low frequencies away, suddenly your voice sounds remarkably thin, or maybe even squeaky to your own ears.
Now, that physical explanation makes total sense, right? It perfectly explains why the voice sounds different. But think about it for a second. Is a simple lack of bass really enough to make you physically wince? I mean, if a song on the radio lacked bass, you wouldn't cringe in horror. Frequency alone doesn't actually explain this deep psychological discomfort we feel. There is something much, much deeper hiding beneath the surface here. To find out what's really going on, we have to look inside your brain. As you're speaking, your brain is actively filtering what you hear. It's busy creating this perfect, idealized model of what you intend to say. It quietly mutes all your tiny mistakes. It completely ignores your hesitations, your slight stumbles, those weird little pronunciations. In your own head, you are delivering an absolutely flawless performance every single time. And because we are so used to this flawless, bass-heavy illusion, we genuinely struggle to recognize our real selves. There was this fascinating study done back in 2013 where researchers secretly mixed participants' own voices into a lineup of other recordings. And incredibly, only 38% of people actually recognize their own voice. The illusion is so deep that most of us literally do not know what we sound like. And the funny thing is, when they didn't recognize it, people actually rated their own voice pretty highly. But when we do recognize it, oh man, that is when the panic sets in. Way back in 1966, psychologists defined this voice confrontation as a sudden confrontation with expressive qualities which the subject had not intended to express. What does that mean in simple terms? It means hearing a recording strips away all your control. You're no longer managing the performance. You're just sitting back, being forced to confront what your voice is secretly revealing about you. You see, your vocal cords are incredibly sensitive. They're packed with nerves, which makes them exquisitely responsive to your internal emotions. So without you even realizing it's happening, your voice is leaking your true feelings. It broadcasts this subtle flash of anxiety, a tiny moment of indecision, maybe a lingering sadness, or even a hidden anger. And this is where it really starts to affect our daily lives. Neuroscientists point out a pretty profound truth. We don't cringe just because the pitch sounds weird to us. We cringe because the recording completely betrays the confident social mask we are so desperately trying to wear. You might think you sound perfectly composed and professional in a meeting, but then on the playback, you hear that slight quiver of nerves.
And just like that, the illusion of your social mask is completely shattered. Now, if you're still sitting there thinking this is just about missing the bass from your skull, consider bilingual speakers. A really interesting study showed that bilingual people cringe much harder when hearing their native language recorded compared to their second language. Why would that be? Well, it's because we have much deeper emotional ties to our first language. It carries our core identity. If this whole thing were just physics, the language you're speaking wouldn't matter at all. But it does, which proves this is really about emotional exposure. Which naturally brings up a slightly terrifying thought. If our recordings sound thin to us and they leak all these hidden insecurities, is that how the rest of the world actually perceives us? Are our friends and our coworkers constantly hearing this anxious fraud? It is so incredibly easy to spiral here, thinking that everyone around you is actively judging this voice that you suddenly hate. So, what do other people actually hear?
Well, the truth is actually incredibly reassuring. They just hear you. That's it. Other people are not out there judging your voice. And that's because they don't have that deep, bass-filled internal radio host in their heads to compare it to. To them, it is just your natural, completely familiar sound. It's the voice of their friend, the voice of their partner. I promise you, your inner critic is the absolute only one in the room who is panicking. And the really good news here is that you can actually cure this cringe. Professional voice actors and podcasters do it all the time through a psychological trick called mere exposure. It's surprisingly simple. If you listen to recordings of yourself often enough, your brain naturally adjusts. You learn to expect the real airborne sound instead of that internal bone sound. You start to realize those little emotional leaks, they aren't actually that noticeable to anyone else. Over time, you organically shift from this harsh self-criticism to simple acceptance. So, the next time you hear a video of yourself and you feel that sudden, powerful urge to wince, just take a breath. Remember that literally nobody else is cringing. Your inner critic is just reacting to a broken illusion. Your brain was playing a little trick on you, and the microphone simply told the truth. Once you realize you were just wearing an acoustic mask this whole time, you might actually find that your real voice really isn't so bad after all.